and welcome to this education session on manual wheelchairs. Today we're looking at wheelchairs for users who are new and those looking to change their wheelchair. Users of wheelchairs typically engage in multiple activities during the day. This includes manual lifts for pressure relief, self-propelling depending on distances accessed, and participation in daily activities, which may include shopping or community activities. With this exposure to multiple activities, there is a high risk of injury to the upper limb due to frequent use. We're therefore going to look at the relationship between maneuverability and stability of wheelchairs and how we can optimally configure wheelchairs to better manage upper limb injuries. When selecting a wheelchair, it's important to consider the frame build. Typically, frames are built of aluminium, carbon fiber, or titanium. The weight of the wheelchair is influenced by the material build. The lighter the wheelchair, the less energy used to propel the wheelchair. When selecting the frame material, it's important to consider strength to weight ratio. What does this mean? For example, aluminium, carbon fiber, and titanium offer dampening effects, however to varying degrees, with titanium and carbon fiber offering higher levels of dampening effect. Why consider vibration dampening? There's less vibration experienced by the body of the user and more absorbed through the wheelchair. Let's focus more on wheelchair configuration. When talking about wheelchair configuration, we need to touch on topics relating to stability and maneuverability. These two issues are interrelated. With increased stability comes reduced maneuverability. And with increased maneuverability, we have less stability. It is therefore important to balance these needs to effectively meet the needs of the client to ensure their safety when using a wheelchair.
The centre of gravity of a wheelchair, or often referred to as COG, is important in the user setup of a wheelchair. This can have a long-term impact on the client's shoulder wear and tear and use over many years. Most manufacturers have an adjustment of their centre of gravity on a wheelchair. The further forward you have it, the more tippy the chair will be. The further back you have it, the more stable it will be. It's important to find the centre of gravity that suits your client so there's less weight on the casters as possible. This will mean the chair is easier to manoeuvre and turn and easier to push. The position of the axle on most wheelchairs is adjustable up and down. Some wheelchairs it's set, and that would happen in the scripting process. It's important to ask questions to your supplier as to whether your rear seat height can be adjusted. This enables the user to be able to reach the wheel in the correct and right position to get the optimum push on the wheelchair wheel. With your rear axle position, with your COG and your rear seat height, having this adjustable or setting up correctly is important. A good test for a wheelchair user, or when you're doing a script for a wheelchair, is when the client's seated in the chairs to have their hands come down the side of the frame like wheels like this, and the centre of the axle should be somewhere between the end of your fingertips and the centre of your palm. The setup of your rear wheels is important to enable the user to have the correct push range on the wheel. Having your hand in this position and having the wheel set up correctly means that your elbow is between 100 to 120 degrees of bend. This enables a good push stroke on the wheel from this position back to here to push efficiently. The bigger the stroke and the more access to the wheel enables less shoulder wear and tear long term. Where possible, the axle should be in a straight line with your centre of gravity over the axle from your head to your shoulders through down to your axle, which enables the chair to be tippy and easy to push. Most manufacturers of wheelchairs have the ability to have different length frames. This, coinciding with your adjustable centre of gravity, enables the wheelchair to be shorter or longer. This would be determined at time of scripting as to your client's needs, whether they're an active user or someone that maybe need a longer wheelbase for stability. Having a shorter wheelbase with your rear wheels and casters closer together means it's more manoeuvrable, it's a shorter frame to get around and easier to push. Some circumstances you might like to have it longer. The setup of this first example is this rear wheel position is in line with my trunk and my body mass. The setup of this second example shows the rear wheel is further back, therefore harder to reach and harder to push. To help wheelchairs be more stable laterally and easier to turn and push, camber is often used in the rear wheels of wheelchairs. Sometimes this is adjustable and other times it's fixed. Regardless, it makes the chair easier to turn and push. This wheelchair has 2 degrees of camber. For active users, it's quite common to have their wheelchair set up with a good wheel position and centre of gravity so the user can do a wheelie. This stops wear and tear on the casters, but most importantly, it's easy to manoeuvre and the chair will go up and over bumps and humps easier. A common question frequently asked for wheelchair users is to whether I have a solid tyre on my wheelchair or a pneumatic tyre, which is a pump up. A pneumatic tyre is a tyre that's easier to push, 2 or 3 times easier than a solid tyre. However, a solid polyurethane tyre has no maintenance. There's no punctures and lasts longer, therefore easier to maintain. It is quite common for active users to have a lightweight wheel and a high pressure tyre, which has a higher pressure rating, so there's less friction on the ground and easier to push. There are other tyres which have a foam-filled insert in them which has less maintenance, but these are generally heavier. The wider the tyre, the more surface area there is on the ground, so more friction, so harder to push, but better in softer terrain. Some manufacturers have a thick piece of rubber in the top of the tyre which helps it to push, but lowers the maintenance as it can't get punctured as often. It is quite common these days to have 2 sets of tyres, so you can quick release one set off depending on the use.
Thank you for being part of this education session. We hope that this brief overview has provided you with some information regarding configuration of manual wheelchairs. Should you have any concerns, questions, or wanting to trial equipment, please contact us.